It's been almost a whole year since I've released a twin flame video, and I've gotten many questions about when the next video is going to come out and why I stopped recording videos on this very popular topic. Well, the truth is, a part of me felt like I never wanted to talk about this topic again, because a part of me didn't even want to re-involve myself in this extremely controversial area. The twin flame community has turned out to be an extremely polarizing and dangerous space because the amount of disillusionment, deception, and false light teachings that spread in this niche, I think, is unparalleled to any other space within this spiritual community. The twin flame community specifically breeds a lot of toxic relationships, and a lot of people fall prey to twin flame connections, or so they seem to be twin flame connections, when they're really struggling with different attachment style issues, like avoidant attachment style or anxious avoidant attachment style, people that are not able to hold space for love within their hearts. And so they find it alluring to fantasize and develop feelings of limerence toward another individual that likewise can't hold space for love. And so they develop this intoxicating connection of highs and lows when in reality, that is a trauma bond. And it's very difficult at times to distinguish between the two. And yet I still feel a need to come back to the twin flame story. And perhaps this time it's going to become clear that the twin flame connection cannot be mistaken for a trauma bond. A twin flame connection is another universe compared to some of these dysfunctional relationship dynamics that are very common on planet Earth. The twin flame story is many levels deeper and higher. Not everybody has a twin flame, and yet I've come to see that this third-dimensional playing field is a simulation for the twin flame story to unfold. Let me explain why. First of all, the twin flame story is one universal tale of source consciousness dividing itself into two parts, a positive and negative charge, a light and a dark polarity. The yin and the yang, two polarities that effectively mix together to come back to that condition of unity consciousness. Twin flames are each representative of a fractal of that cosmic dance of oneness separating into these two polarities to re-experience the merging of the harmonious differences into one complementary pairing. Every single twin flame story, couple, pairing, and union is the one story, the exact same story, meaning what we play out as a twin flame couple is the exact same story that you listen to in those beautiful romantic songs that pull at your heartstrings and make you live the emotions of the other people that have gone through that same heart-wrenchingly beautiful, poignant, and painful love story, which often ends in tragedy, in heartbreak, in despair. Because what tends to occur is that twin flames are not able to come together in the lower dimensional realm. The twin flame experience is not set up for twin flames to easily come together, because the nature of the journey is for the hero to embark on a series of steps to uncover their own soul. And as the story begins for each and every one of us, as a child entering the world, we are in a state of amnesia. We don't remember who we are, where we came from, or why we're here. It takes many years for us to develop even a healthy sense of self, let alone to meet somebody else and learn those relational dynamics that take us into the space of romance and deeper entanglement that then brings us to the inception point of love and oneness through another. In the twin flame story, the saga begins with an individual venturing into their own soul, the hero coming into contact with the inner realm, and going on a series of challenging steps wherein they realize what the nature of their identity really means. The hero must first learn who they are before they encounter this individual that sets off that polarizing dance of internal energies, which they must learn to do something about. When a twin flame enters your life, every single twin flame pairing is experiencing that same dynamic. Strong desire, strong passion, a desire to rekindle those lost sparks because a deep memory sets in when the twin flame is encountered. It's the memory of lovers uniting after not seeing each other for aeons of time. And yet there's also this strong familiarity, as if you're recovering that lost part of you that was always found and was always meant to be right there, warming your soul and creating this space where unity is always accessible. But this person in the physical, they are just representing a reflection of yourself, of your identity. The degree to which that unity is experienced is proportional to how much unity you are able to experience within yourself. Now, the two partners in a twin flame dynamic are completely different individuals, and they're each playing out their own story. The one that is experiencing the divine feminine aspect of the dynamic, that yin energy, which is creative, deep, and desires to explore the creative nuances of the experience, as well as the deep feminine wisdom found along the way, is often very penetrating with its wisdom. The feminine tends to hold the key to integration, which the masculine counterpart needs to assimilate in order to come home to the other aspect of himself. As the case may be in the physical dimension, very often the masculine counterpart is lost along the way. It's like the hero that's looking for the gift of the goddess. The hero can go along his entire life journey, achieving material success, physical wins, status, self-gratification, and connection through other individuals and different extensions of them. But when the hero comes to that inevitable point in his journey when he's confronted with the need to look into his own heart and soul and understand where he is deeply unfulfilled because he's lacking connection to the Divine Mother or the feminine archetype, he finds a schism and a void within himself, which his twin flame, the Divine Feminine counterpart, awakens. And this universal story, every single man that experiences this divine masculine need to unite with his internal feminine meets the exact same archetype within their twin flame that inspires them to unify with her. However, what happens next is the most arduous part of the journey. The divine feminine, as the carrier of the wisdom that the masculine needs, is going to be extremely enticing to him. He's going to want to wrap her in his own space of belonging, take her in, provide for her, but in the material sense, in the way that the divine masculine has always been used to providing for himself and others in reality. The divine masculine archetype is a fractal of Luciferian energy, because the way that the archetype of Lucifer learns to unify with the matrix experience is through domination, is through learning how to ground himself in the material world, to find connection through his mind, through the gifts of his intellect, through his physical abilities, through his groundedness, through his ability to find safety through personal security. And that's often based on security through attachments and through meeting of physical needs, often at the expense of the gifts of the heart. The divine masculine counterpart needs to learn how to open his heart and realize the shortages of his ego, and needs to learn to let go of certain core aspects of his self that create a dependency upon the physical plane. Because what the divine masculine is subconsciously looking for is for freedom from the matrix. He's looking for the door out. However, he's too attached to the groundedness he's already been cultivating to even allow himself to exit this matrix experience. Every single divine masculine counterpart on planet Earth is a fractal of the same polarity, the same energetic consciousness or source. It's an expression of this Luciferian energy, which is actually the light bringer. Lucifer is not exclusively good nor bad. We can't apply duality to this alignment of the soul. However, Lucifer also needs to learn a lesson, because like every other energetic archetype or role in this simulation, Lucifer also must experience ascension, Lucifer must also learn to depend less on manipulation to meet his needs, less upon connection to the physical to experience metaphysical power, and more trust through surrender in order to allow himself to harmonize with the divine feminine source of wisdom. Luciferian energy is extremely stubborn. It's difficult to move and shake because Lucifer is a very powerful energetic consciousness. If you're not familiar with Luciferian energy, it always illuminates something because it's rooted in this self-righteous attitude, which always proves itself superior. The issue with Luciferian energy and the masculine consciousness is that it's often unable to give in to the opposing viewpoint. In the case of twin flames, this is the nature of the dilemma. When the divine masculine can't let in another perspective, he can't see the gift of the goddess. He can't take in what the feminine is meant to give to him through her birthing of wisdom, which he can only accept if he lowers his ego and allows in his own soul to confirm what the feminine wants to bring in. If this sounds very abstract to you, let me give you an example. All women and carriers of this divine feminine consciousness innately experience a connection to wisdom, and the divine feminine literally lives and speaks within them. When a woman is awakened to her own truth, there are certain things she's not going to tolerate in her reality because they are going to bring her tremendous pain. For example, if a woman with this deeply awakened nature experiences dishonesty, a lack of integrity, any kind of malicious intentions, especially from her intimate partner, she's going to automatically feel unsafe, to the point that she's going to feel closed off, physically contract, lose the desire for physical intimacy, feel withdrawn from her partner, and not experience emotional connection. Biologically and neurologically, this also holds a lot of significance because if a woman isn't ready to surrender to her partner because she receives the subconscious impulses that let her know her partner is not safe to surrender to, she's going to be closed off and is also not going to be very respectively honoring of his own needs because she's going to feel defensive over the lack of her own needs being met by him. This is a natural interplay of energies, which is experienced by every woman carrying this divine feminine wisdom. And it all comes down to this. If the divine feminine in her is not being respected by her partner, meaning, in the twin flame dynamic, the divine masculine counterpart, then she is going to feel rejected due to her very sacred nature not being honored by her divine counterpart. The issue is as follows. When the masculine isn't ready to face the triggering that the divine feminine is able to provide to him so that she can pave the way into divine integration, which is essentially them both harmonizing through the lowering of these egoic shields and allowing the pure higher conscious energies to guide the two of them into this dance of oneness, where they both live their lives in pursuit of a higher purpose. They both focus not on creating more karma, more physical barriers or conditions or attachments to keep them trapped in the physical realm, but instead they focus more on ascending, on meeting their highest intentions together to grow spiritually and to especially emotionally meet their own needs. They're going to experience a synergistic and uplifting union. However, the energies as they stand on planet Earth at this time reveal the following. The divine masculine, as this fractal of this Luciferian energy we've been unraveling, has not chosen to accept the gift of the goddess. The masculine has not decided he wants to go through the transformation to become his highest version of self. What's mind-blowing to realize about this is that even though there are certain twin flames experiencing physical union, meaning they live together, they spend tremendous time together, maybe even experience wonderful connection together in the physical realm, there are no twin flame couples on planet Earth in union at this moment. Because the union I'm talking about is an energetic and spiritual kind of union, which is that highest devotion of both to their higher selves and to the one shared oversoul simultaneously, as the highest condition for that pairing. This condition has not been fulfilled by any twin flame couple because we're all fractals in the true twin flame collective of that same story. The same story can be examined on this cosmic clock of consciousness. At the right time, all twin flames inevitably will come into union. And twin flames are all affected by cosmic energies, by astrology, by shifts in human dynamics, because as a global collective and global family, we are all undergoing certain changes at the same time. To a large degree, we are not even in conscious control over this process, because the energies that enter our lives, they are motivating us to make the necessary shifts to continue ascending, to let go of certain things. We go through certain triggers. As certain new or full moon energies, for example, arise, we might feel compelled to release certain aspects of our lives, to grieve certain emotions, to integrate deeper feelings that we have been storing away and repressing. However, at those times when collectively we are all confronted with these different celestial energies and shifts, we all choose to do similar things because those patterns of consciousness prevail. They are stronger than us. And so collectively, as a twin flame global family, that one story is currently at a stage at which we all need to learn to rise up, to embrace our power. The feminine counterpart in this entire twin flame story is more likely to do that at this time, in the spiritual sense. The masculine is more likely to do this in the physical sense. And this is really where the divide lies. The masculine experiences his power through a connection to the physical. The feminine, however, has already outgrown that connection. What the divine feminine counterpart wants most is for her masculine counterpart to simply let go, to lighten, to raise his frequency, to be real with himself, to be honest, to graciously accept his higher calling. And yet collectively, the masculine is in resistance. This brings tremendous pain to the feminine. And it's very sad for me to say that the amount of pain experienced by the twin flame collective is astronomical. The pain of the twin flame story is such that every twin flame is aware what their higher, exalted, future, more integrated version of self is experiencing, and that is union. What we're experiencing in the third dimension is like a movie playing out. A slowed down film allowing you to experience the breath of life, the emotions of emotion, experiencing every ebb and flow and all of the deep feelings that accompany this experience, because that is what makes the love real. If we were to experience deep unity all the time, progression of the higher self's nature wouldn't occur. And so the question that often comes up is, why is this all necessary? Why the tragedy? Why the heartbreak? Why the separation? Well, because the twin flame story is what moves the collective consciousness. What inspires this Luciferian energy to evolve is love, is ultimately realizing that the masculine, by choosing to not let go of his ego, brings tremendous pain to the feminine. It's the pain of preventing union in the physical realm. This pain, even channeling it, is so difficult to convey because it's the pain of knowing that there is a higher version of self which is integrated, which needs nothing to prove, which is connected to all of the divine aspects of the true masculine nature. However, collectively, the masculine has not yet chosen to embody those higher aspects of self. And this is something that is experienced by millions worldwide. Many are waking up to their true purpose, and yet they're waiting for their other half to continue to evolve and allow the synchronization. However, we can't wait for the other to evolve. The nature of the game is that we must evolve anyway, and that's what's ultimately going to create a pivot in this twin flame story. The divine feminine is being called to right now raise up to the task of releasing the attachment to the counterpart, to this other character in the story, which has been creating any kind of dependency an emotional weight or a feeling of contingency in her own evolution. Because when the divine feminine rises, the story changes. The plan of the Luciferian energy attempting to stall twin flame evolution fails. Because the reason why the masculine is really stalling is because he's consumed in attachment. He's experiencing what is almost like a possession of his own soul. There's a part of him which is not corresponding to his own soul connection, and he doesn't even understand why. That individual in the twin flame story that isn't sure why or how they should choose love, how they can surrender their ego and let in a higher perspective, is really unaware of their ability to do so, and they are highly triggered by divine mother energy because in the encryption of their physical avatar, they all had to experience a certain degree of trauma, which is preventing them from even believing the divine feminine is to be trusted. This divine masculine counterpart, in order to become deeply fearing of the power of the divine feminine, needed to go through certain archetypal developments along his own soul's journey here in the physical realm to develop this kind of a disconnect from his own soul. He had to be programmed with a certain degree of shame surrounding his true self. He had to start to fear his authenticity. He needed to learn that he needs to prove himself in order to achieve more self-gratification or to be worthy of certain admiration. He had to be set up in a slightly narcissistic way in order to feel like he can survive. And so the masculine archetype is unfortunately heavily connected to this egoic construct, which is a narcissistic, self-projected nature of the masculine embodying Luciferian energy for self-preservation. What this feels like is the divine masculine is really in chains. He can't break free because he's developed all of these coping mechanisms to keep himself safe and to not experience any more pain of being perhaps abandoned by his mother or not experiencing the kind of connection that he needs to feel safe in the world. And so he's learned to rely on his ego for survival. However, what the twin flame connection opens the door to is ultimately the realization that although that egoic construct provides defense, security, abundance, protection in the physical realm, it does nothing to allow for ascension. It doesn't allow the masculine to get to the next level of his soul's evolution. In fact, mastering the physical in the matrix experience only allows you to understand the confines of the matrix. You can become very comfortable maneuvering here, learning how to survive through the egoic consciousness. However, that only keeps you stuck here. And that's what keeps twin flames coming back over and over and over again. This is why the story repeats on itself, and the archetypes actually never fade. This energy is always recycled. However, ultimately, the twin flame journey does reach a certain peak, which will come in our future. It may even come in our lifetime. But this is something that cannot be thought of in a linear way at all. Where the story ultimately heads is when the divine feminine chooses to break free of her attachment or the emotional hold that the separation has on her. She can create meaningful change through her heart, and she can birth a new consciousness on planet Earth. And that's what women are currently being called to do. To not be restrained by these physical limitations and to keep ascending. To show the masculine how it's done. To show the power of true love and to show that love can be trusted because the union is always accessible in the higher dimensional way. The union I'm talking about is the union of your own spirit. It's the heroes, gammas, or sacred marriage of parts within your own being and within all of our beings. And so really the twin flame story, even if you don't physically have a twin flame, is still a relatable story. And it's still the backdrop experience for what we're going through on planet Earth. What we're experiencing is this dualistic reality in which we think we need war, we need hatred, we need more separation, fights, bickering, and divisiveness to reveal the road back to unity. But in reality, all we need to do is to stop the fight and to explore what caused it. And what caused it always comes back to the same story. The disunited pairing and the refusal to stop the fight and to understand why unity is always within reach. But it's difficult to access because the ego tends to obfuscate the path to it. The road back to unity is simply through merging with the spirit self, the astral self, that's already in loving alignment and in true unity. However, when you choose to connect to yourself in that way, you might realize that you're not actually in union with your twin flame in the physical, and maybe you will never be. Because it takes a lot of time for that evolution to take shape. It takes time for the stripping away of egoic layers, illusions, dysfunction, and for the masculine and feminine to both heal themselves, to no longer be in opposition with their own souls. Both need to go through tremendous growth, trials and tribulations, and all of those factors prevent physical union. Because meeting in the physical is just the first step to rekindling a long-lost connection that was actually always present. It's just frequencies away. When you raise your frequency, you realize that when you bring yourself to this higher way of thinking, being, and perception, where there's always stillness, peace, love, and undying connection, you feel that love, and you know that nothing else is needed to experience that kind of sacred devotion. But when life gets in the way, when we're challenged by everything else that brings us chaos, noise, attachment, and external fixations, many of us don't choose love. Because oftentimes to choose love, everything else needs to change in our lives. Many people don't choose love because how could they choose love over everything else? But that's literally the nature of the twin flame story. Imagine thinking about it this way. If you were to pass on to the other side right now, physically transition, die, leave your physical avatar, what would you be able to take with you? You can't bring your physical possessions, your home, your job, and your whole identity is left behind, along with your status, achievements, your money, everything you physically generated, all gone, poof, in a flash. Well, what if what you experience as soon as you make that transition is that frequency of love? Is that feeling of deep belonging, coming home to oneness, to truth, to divine mother energy, to sacred wisdom of your own soul's essence? And yet that's the one thing that most of us can't assimilate in the here and now, because we think that if we choose to embody that high frequency of our own soul, everything else will be lost. And so we live our lives in this compromising manner. And many of the divine masculine in the collective are experiencing exactly that reality. They know they need to choose love. They do know it. And they know that their divine feminine is waiting for them to do so. But they aren't willing to lay to rest their egos and make this quantum jump happen. Because that quantum jump is literally a jump into a parallel universe, or a different timeline, if you will. It's a jump of leaving behind their past self, along with all of the baggage, toxicity, sinful behavior, toxic ways and patterns, unconsciousness, their shadow, and even any kind of demonic connection that they might have experienced in the past that compelled them to live in a lower version of self. Leaving that behind is more about freeing their own souls than it is about uniting with their twin flame. But their twin flame is just the higher frequency counterpart that is waiting for them on the other side. And so for anybody going through this journey, know that this is universal. We are literally all going through this together. And so if you feel that you are alone, you most certainly are not. Believe in what your soul is telling you, because we're now going through a time at which a lot of deep knowing is being activated. We all have higher dimensional abilities of clear cognizance, clairvoyance, clairaudience. You may be receiving certain visions, dreams, communicating in the astral, or having downloads come into your field, guiding you to make certain changes happen. And if you feel you need to do certain powerful things in order to align with your own higher self's nature, regardless of what you feel is happening in this twin flame connection, choose love, because that is what your higher self and what every other twin flame would want you to do. In order to facilitate the collective leap into a reality of true unity, we must choose love individually. And collectively, that too will begin to transpire. But it takes tremendous courage. Facing your fears, facing your inner demons, choosing to look into your shadow and realize where you've been abstaining from uniting with source consciousness. Because all of that will be reflected right back to you and maybe stalling your ability to even choose love going forward. Choosing love is more about trading places with your lower self and abolishing everything that might have been keeping you in the dark when it comes to witnessing your own soul's evolution. So with that said, the twin flame story is compelling us to win a spiritual war that has been prevalent over aeons of time, since the beginning of time. And yet it's something that we must think about in this transcendental manner, because time is irrelevant, but this journey certainly is not. I'm sending you so much love. And I want you to know, if you're going through this, that love is the only goal. It's the reason this entire simulation was created. And ultimately, there is such love waiting for us on the other side of our ego's transformation, because everything that is not aligned with love is really the elaborate illusion, the divine game created for us to learn to choose love over and over again and defeat the unconsciousness that has kept us in the dark throughout it all.